So the ivory tower, so these things are trickling down, by the way, and it is bad they're trickling down. But I have to say, there's one thing I need to add to this argument. But since the church should have been saying these things before, now actually we probably have put ourselves in a position where we do actually have to listen and learn from the ivory tower because we weren't saying it loudly.
Right. Yeah. So there's, man, there's so much back and forth that you would say basically, well, the church should have been culture warriors, right? The church should have been culture warriors. They weren't. And so now you shouldn't be. That's if you follow it, that is the logic that she's using. We should have said something, we didn't. And now that there's she agreed that there are false things that are trickling down. So that is a kind of that is something that should be spoken out against, you would think.
Right.
She says, no, actually, no, we probably shouldn't speak out against those things.
And she brings up 2 examples, and it looks like in the chapter breakdown, will come back to BLM, and she brings up Martin Luther King Jr. Right. Let me just say, right, she's like, well, the church was not very quick to get on board. And then she lists, and they said things like, if you're really with us, you'll be for same-sex marriage and transgender rights. You have just completely defined why people felt torn about getting on board.
Yeah.
That is, that's why. That is why. That was why. It wasn't, yeah. And even if people didn't know that, the other reason people felt that way, and this is, again, part of the strength of his beginning, was inherently untrustworthy people to Christians and their Christian worldview were the ones saying it. And they went, man, it feels like I should take 6 seconds of discernment and wonder why this thing that would seem so unobjectionable is being touted this way. And then they learned, it's because they tied a complete Marxist, all of these very clearly anti-biblical worldviews along with what is a completely unobjectionable statement, right? That's why. That's the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah. The other question, of course, with Martin Luther King Jr. is, again, right, at this point, he does not fit with the terms of critical race theory, right? And again, what a fascinating character who had faults. Again, this is neither the time. I don't have time to go through it, but he had faults. But again, what do I celebrate about him? Is that he said, I want to live in a world where my children are not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Right. And that whatever degree he had faults or not, that is a incredibly positive statement. And we should look back at the idea that would have been radical at any point as oh, wow, things needed to change if that was not possible.
Yeah.
Also, that is not where we are today. That is no longer, again, that is not the perspective today.
Yep. It's not the argument at all. It's interesting if you go back and listen to some of the speeches and how even, in some of the most famous speeches from Martin Luther King Jr., you will find things that today would be directly objected to by the woke, right? By those who, have these new ideas of what is a kind of often a kind of racial supremacy or racial superiority, just going the other way, right? Anti-racism, so-called, right? This is right. That is the idea of no, the only way that we can solve these inequities of the past is to now just change them, right? Just make them flow the other direction. That's the idea today. That's not what you hear anyway when you hear, for instance, the "I Have a Dream" speech.
And this is the actual value of history, that people in history actually don't fit in our neat categories.
Yeah.
Right. This is what's
and you actually can ask, hey, why is that? Why? Why don't they fit in those categories?
Right.
And that would be really helpful for you.
Why don't the Southern Presbyterians get the fact that they're saying such objectionable things? Why? It would be a mistake for Christians to say, well, oh yeah, the civil rights movement, that was just the like Christians and Christians doing the Christian thing to do. Like, no, they don't fit into that category, and they don't fit into the modern progressive category. And thinking
They
through
are
that,
a third way. This is the right third way, Matt. The right third
I like
way
it.
is not your
looking at
team or
history.
the other team, but looking at through history and understanding, no, they were just their own kinds of people with their own problems, their own sins, that maybe we can see more readily from where we're standing, but also from where they're standing, they can point out our sins more clearly as well.
Yes.